Pigweed here. Today we have a short show about Indigenous Peoples Day.
Hey, good evening, Pigweed.
Good evening,
Hey,
good
how's
evening.
it going?
All right.
How about some beer and conversation?
Well, sure. What are we drinking?
Well, that's a good question. So there was some leftover of a pale ale, sort of a beer,
Yeah.
and there was some leftover of some hard lemonade.
Okay.
And they got mixed together.
Oh, yes, they
so
did.
it's kind of a shandy kind of a thing. But,
Very good.
but full
Very
strength.
good.
Yeah, little tart. All right. So what's on your mind?
Well, Columbus Day was this week, and the best part about Columbus Day is everybody in the government stays home. I still have to work. That's not great, but at least there's no traffic. And so I'm driving to work, and I get my normal phone notices, and it reminded me that it was Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yeah,
And I was like, I thought I was off.
Thought it was Columbus Day.
I thought it was Columbus Day.
Who changed it? Did it get officially changed?
No.
Did Biden change it or something?
No, it's state by state, and Apple phones. And
I see. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. So, what's the sense of Indigenous Peoples Day? Why are we?
Well, I
celebrating
mean,
that?
I got there's 364 other days that you could have chosen.
Sure.
I mean, I got no problem with an Indigenous Peoples Day.
Sure. Okay.
What I mean,
Why did it have to replace Columbus Day?
Yeah, because
I see.
why you have to poke somebody in the eye?
right. Yeah.
Because and of course because Columbus and the Europeans are bad guys, and the Indians are innocent, nature-loving, nature-worshipping fuzzballs.
Right. In Disney movies, yes, but not
Yes.
in reality.
But so, well, I have a few suggestions here on ways
How
to celebrate.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. One of them. Well, first you got to start with human sacrifice.
Yes, because that was common, especially down in South America.
Yeah.
And if someone owes you money, you can just feel free to sacrifice them to the climate goddess Greta Thunberg in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Or find some other indigenous people.
Right.
And instead of having a friendly powwow, you just massacre all of them.
That's what they seem to do.
and it wasn't pitched open field battles. It was like night raids where you murder all the men and you capture and enslave the
women.
or replace your lost tribe.
Yeah,
with
that's
the
what
children.
was happening all over the Americas before
all
they weren't all sitting around having nice conversations about.
Very indigenous.
Yeah.
What else could you do?
Okay, how about collect scalps of your
collect
enemies?
scalps? Yeah, that's not a
good
bad
one.
idea. Enslave others.
Right. There was a lot of slavery. Apparently, this is kind of weird. I read this in the book 1491. Apparently, slavery was more common in the southern Indian tribes than it was in the northern Indian tribes.
Okay.
So there's almost a parallelism with the American Civil War. Which
Something
is
in the
strange.
water.
Yeah, kind of strange. You could eat people, too.
Yeah, I didn't know that there was how big cannibalism was, but why wouldn't it be?
Yeah, I mean, and certainly in certain places. Although what I understand is when you get to cannibalism, that's like the tail end of a civilization. Civilizations collapse pretty shortly after that.
So you could just steal everything. Like the Comanches Comanches didn't have a lot of culture. Their culture they're like Spartans.
Yeah.
Everybody's a warrior.
Yeah, like Vikings or something. Their
And
culture
you
is just go take what you can take.
Yes, and so they suggest that you loot a Walmart as part of Indigenous Peoples Day.
Sure, and then in the process, you could torture people.
Yeah, I mean, why just kill them outright when you have a little fun first?
You could torture them. You could set up a religion with this great big monument, great big stone monument, where one guy's at the top with a knife, and like people are just lining up to get laid down and have their hearts cut out, and blood running down the side. of the monument.
Europeans were in Tenochtitlan in central Mexico, and witnessed days, literally miles of people standing in line
to be killed.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. And that we're supposed to celebrate that.
Oh, well.
Isn't it wonderful?
Be a bigot.
Yeah. That's
You
right.
did not celebrate it.
You could just another thing you could do to celebrate Indigenous people is to complain about the Europeans doing what you've been doing.
Yes, well, that reminds me, on Indigenous Peoples Day, I saw a clip from a movie that now I'm interested in seeing. It's Colonel Custer sitting down with Sitting Bull and discussing, what's the problem here? And Sitting Bull goes on and on about his ancestral lands and, his ancestors and And
how it's sacred.
It's how sacred it is, and they shouldn't be there. And Custer, who apparently did his homework, he said, "You guys came from Minnesota," and he names all the tribes that were living in the plains where Sitting Bull currently is, and says, "What happened to them? Didn't you kill all of them and take all of their stuff and all of their land?
Yeah,
isn't that how warfare works?"
That's right. And now you're complaining that we're doing it to you,
right? So
tough.
Put them up. Because really, if there is not a piece of dirt on this planet that people are living on that wasn't fought for.
Of course. I mean, what are you going to go back to the Neanderthals and say, they settled this land and they get to keep it forever and ever? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
Every group of people have moved around and conquered one another.
Custer says, "What did you pop out of the ground?"
Right. You popped out of the ground right here, and you exist, and it's your sacred possession, this land.
There are very few universal truisms, but one of them is, if you can defend your land, you get to keep your land.
Yeah.
And this is something not unique to white Europeans. This is every civilization in the history.
It's the way it's always been. Yeah, the way it's always been. It's not necessarily the most lovely thing in the world, but that's just the way it is. I mean, what do you want to say?
Happy about it.
Yeah. And also, if, there's this idea you can't unscramble an egg. Like were the Europeans supposed to come here and then go around and figure out, oh, wait a minute, the Comanches weren't really originally here. We're going to move them back over where they originally were. And the Navajo weren't originally here. We're going to...
They were supposed to come here, realize that the Earth has 1/3 more landmass than they ever realized, and then they go, "Oh shoot,
there's somebody already here. Darn it.
We're all going to go." I mean,
I know. What do you exactly?
Or the other one is we would just divide the country in half so that from the Mississippi to the East Coast looks exactly like it does, and on the other half it looks like 1492. Does that make sense? Is that humanly possible? Or that we're going to meld together into some brand new 50% European and 50% Indian new culture?
Yeah.
None of these things are a child.
It's ridiculous when you have a huge technological and cultural superiority. And you're supposed to just say, okay, fine, we're going to adopt their customs?
Right.
No, you're not going to adopt their customs.
We got 5,000 years of development ahead on these guys.
Yeah. You don't even have metal. I mean, you have wheels.
You don't have the wheel.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
No written language.
Yeah.
I mean, what? We're supposed to be enamored with, we can't look down on them.
Yeah, look at how they smoke that peace pipe.
Jeez. Yeah. So we got a couple of fun little memes here. Okay. There we have your Aztec priest.
Here's the Aztec priest slaughtering somebody. Although here it's just one person. We need to see
there's a long line.
It's a line of thousands.
Ripping his heart out, and then there's some Spaniards and a priest. And what's the priest say?
Oh, here comes the far right. Yeah. Those guys are going to ruin everything.
Here's one that says, "Christopher Columbus, the only immigrant liberals hate." That's
a good one. And then it would be a shame if someone interrupted the endless tribal warfare and created a functional society or country.
Yes, there was. And then there was another one where the screen is cut in half with people celebrating, people flying their Confederate flags, saying, since when do the losers get to celebrate? And then below it says, "Happy Indigenous Peoples Day." Anyway, I didn't want to spend too much time on this.
Which is not to say that we couldn't have, been nicer. I mean, certainly there were mistakes and bad things, and it's not to justify everything done against the Indians. But I mean, come on,
it's the way of the world.
Yes, and
let's
not be stupid about it.
And thinking up a plausible alternative.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't even...
Or this is one I think about a lot. Let's say you took a modern person back to 1491, and said, "Look, Columbus, you guys have all these diseases. When you get over there, you're going to spread chickenpox and all this stuff to all these people in the New World, and it's going to slaughter 95% of them. Okay, what's the alternative?" What are they going to do?
Wear masks. Masking solves everything.
Oh, never mind. We just won't go over there until one day somebody figures out a vaccine for.
Yeah, and so really, that's 1492. By the time you get to the Mayflower, and get to 1600,
Yeah.
most of the people are dead.
Yes, it's really amazing how many people died.
Right, because Columbus was just there to. I mean, you had boating excavation.
There were a lot of people who came over, but usually they were trappers and other kinds
Yes,
of
like
things.
in Newfoundland, there was like a port there where they went and fished and came back.
Right.
So there was a lot of that, and these people were already.
But there weren't a lot of
disease.
permanent settlements and things. There were actually the Southwest, down along near Mexico and up California. There was a lot of settlement there. Roman Catholics settled, the priests settled a lot of places along there. And St. Augustine is the oldest country, but there was our oldest city in the country. But there were a lot of people who came over. It just wasn't really mass settlement until the Mayflower and after that.
Yeah, Jamestown and all that. So yes, well, there you go. Short show.
Yeah.
And happy Columbus Day.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.